Hello and welcome to Marketing Gone Wrong, Are You Guilty? Ad Taxi's four-part series, and I'm blessed to have a couple of my coworkers here to help me through this journey. My name is Bob Jameson. I'm VP of the East at Ad Taxi. I'd like to introduce Megan. Say hello, Megan.
Hello, hello. Megan Bacour, Director of Client Services for the West.
And Chris.
Hey, everybody. Chris Berkey, Director of Client Services for the East.
So as usual, I have to bring smart people along to help me on these things, and no better than these two. So the first thing we wanted to point out, remind everyone, is no one is perfect. So we're going to walk through some common mistakes to avoid, and this happens to be the first part of our four-part series, and it is called Strategies That Don't Align or Get Communicated Properly. And it's something we see a lot with the businesses we work with and businesses that we don't work with, but we will consult with at times and see if we can help them. So this is our first fail, and this, what we often find, and again, obviously the visual here will be humorous to many, I hope, but this does create an aspect of getting in your own way, and I think you guys have seen it for sure with people you've dealt with in the past, and it really boils down to communication, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And really where it manifests itself the most is kind of the disconnect between the overarching goals in a given business, right? The CEO and all the top decision makers are coming forth with a plan to hit revenue or growth or whatever it may be at their business. And then that gets communicated to a marketing department. And then when the marketing department begins to work with their agency partners or their internal teams, that seems to be where it kind of falls off, right? And then there's, who are you targeting? What are you trying to grow? And what budgets go behind that? And I think that seems to be the area where it would manifest itself the most. And I guess the first thing, marketing research. And do you guys have opinions on how this can be utilized to help a business grow and really get in front of who they want to?
Yeah, I think
go ahead.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I was just thinking it's a great way because every client seems to think that they know their target audience, right? They think, hey, it's 18 to 39, it skews male, and it very well could be the case. But there might be something out there that says that women 45 and above are growing in that vertical, right? I think about athleisure wear. You see so much of that now. I think it probably flips where men are now growing into that more, but that's something that a business may not know, right? Because on the day-to-day, they're trying to grow their business. They're trying to sell that athleisure wear. They're not necessarily looking at how do I find that next great person to buy my product.
Megan, you had a thought?
Yeah, it kind of comes down to the car buying aspect of it. In a certain circumstance, you might be looking for a minivan. Well, who is the one that's actually making the decision? Maybe the person on the paper is the male, but the female was the one influencing that buy. Or maybe a totally different situation of it's a male-based product, but the females are the ones that are ending up buying it because they're buying it for their significant other and they're spending 2 or 3x more when they do buy. And so that's just getting a better understanding of who's your purchasing power coming from. And those market research tactics are going to help you learn a little bit more into that.
It makes a lot of sense. And I think the other thing that we see often is once you identify the who, then it's okay, well, where are they, in terms of mediums and things like that? How do you reach those individuals? And it might vary from one to the next, depending on what those characteristics are. So I think marketing research is great. And even if you have some sort of hypothesis regarding who they are and where they are, maybe you're close. I think it's well worth it to confirm those things and make sure that your dollars are getting put in the right places, for sure. He's in a silo often, right? So that communication piece, the strategy development and execution between internal teams and agencies, can you think of some stories where you felt like that was a breakdown? You guys probably have a front row seat to this dynamic probably more than anyone.
Yeah, I think one of the main ones I can think of was it happened recently where we had a client, and this happens a lot where they work with us for some products, Google, Facebook, but then they work with someone else too. And that's great. And we're always happy to work with other agencies, but we didn't necessarily know what was going on over there, which would also lead to they probably don't know what's going on with us. And there was a strategy implemented that directly affected what was going on with ours. So we're getting the blame and we're trying to figure out, you look in and all of our signals are set up great, and then come to find out what they were doing with this other agency was kind of hindering what was going on. And had we known that was going on, that they were running something different that could directly affect what we were doing, you can have those honest conversations of, hey, I don't know that ad group or that product even that you're running with them is beneficial to your overall goals. So just being willing to talk about what you're doing. I'm not going to go in and try to steal that business. Like, their business is safe. I want to make sure that our clients' business is safe and that they're growing and that we're hitting their overall marketing goals.
I think that's a great point. And I've seen something almost exactly similar in when a client of ours has managed their channels across different agencies. So a programmatic agency, a social agency, and a search agency. And then they don't communicate the strategies between the three. So maybe the search strategy is very different than what was communicated to the programmatic strategy. And we get in and we're looking at the data and we're just like, why is this one geo driving so much performance? And they're like, oh, well, we're excluding that on the other side because we're doing whatever test. And just not having that full streamline of communication between each of the agencies is not necessarily going to help the bigger picture. And having that clear communication across the board, I think, is the best way to do that.
Yeah, it makes sense. And we've seen instances, for example, where we we'll work with a client monthly in the marketing department, and then we'll have a QBR with their leadership team that's a little bit larger. And you realize that there may have been revenue goals or goals that they've had that aren't necessarily making their way into the marketing plans, and there's missed opportunities often. And I think where the clients or a marketing team would do a disservice to themselves is we have some tactics they may not be familiar with, and if they're communicating some things they may be working on. Perfect example is we've had clients that'll procure lists or even utilize their CRMs and do direct mail or some other type of campaign that we would be able to support programmatically and leverage that same data and help them. And it doesn't necessarily get implemented just because it doesn't make its way into the conversation. So I think that getting into a lull with the relationship with the client, not having conversations, almost like a fresh needs assessment every few months, is a really healthy way to maintain a relationship and make sure those things are bubbling up to the surface. So how can you solve for these? Well, these are the biggest ones that we feel like can really help. First of all, align your goals. Tailor your marketing goals to match your company goals. And I think this means a lot of things. If the leadership team wants to grow X amount, the budget should be commensurate to that and help mathematically provide a pathway there. But then if there might be, leveraging certain strengths, products that sell really well, how do you sell more of those? And then mitigating your weaknesses. There might be certain products that aren't necessarily selling well. How do you solve for that? And then scheduling that communication and keeping your marketing partners and team informed. I think, Megan, you brought up that scenario of all the different channel partners that a client may have. How often do you have a call with all those team members? Probably not often enough, right?
Yeah, almost never.
Yeah, for as much as it happens. And in reality, we always see ourselves as an extension of our clients' team. I think the best way to really carry the spirit of that is to make sure that those calls happen. And then monitoring performance, reviewing analytics from all available sources and really making sure that these pieces are all working together, and hitting the agreed upon KPIs that we had with the marketing team that would be a good indicator that they're moving towards their overall company goals that their leadership team set forth. And I think those are 3 things you can implement pretty easily. They don't cost anything, and it's just more about healthy communication. Well, thank you for your time, and be sure to watch the other 3 parts to our series.